like first question, what inspired you to become a filmmaker? Was it gradual or like was there a specific moment?
Um, well, straight into it. Um, well, there wasn't really a moment. It's just like I was just one of those lucky ones who sort of was introduced to art very young. So I was like learning how to paint, draw very young, and it was just like part of the things I was doing, and I sort of knew where I wanted to be. But then I guess, the more mature I got into writing, and then I found that film was the best sort of way for me to sort of say something, tell a story. And I felt there was like a lot of stories in the Malaysian Tamil community that yet to be explored, and a lot of people weren't exploring that. So for me, I don't know. At some point, filmmaking just became like it was no question, like it's the best way for me to tell a story. So that's just it's sort of very organic process, you know. Yeah.
So have you gone to film school?
No, I didn't go to film school. So I did my undergraduate in architecture in Malaysia. Because at that time Malaysia didn't really have like a great film school or whatever, right? It was like at least 14 years ago. So what I did was I did my undergraduate in architecture, worked for a little bit, and then I did my master's in Kingston University in London, which is like a 1.5 year program or so. Uh, yeah, so that's about it. Not sort of real film school, but I did take masters in filmmaking, so I guess that in a way works like yeah.
So let's talk about Bleat.
Yeah.
The premise of Bleat, a pregnant maid goat. What inspired the narrative and what themes were you aiming to explore through it?
Um, well, Bleed was about it's actually about the community, because the film, like I've always wanted to sort of sort of ex- like I always wanted to break that sort of challenge the order of my community. And I mean, like any community, there's like these gatekeepers who gatekeep so many things about a culture, right? But cultures should evolve, like traditions should evolve according to time. Um, and so for me, it was like I wanted to just challenge the notions of what the community thinks is right and wrong, what the older generation think right and wrong. And the goat was just an image that was like stuck in my head. It was just an idea that I was like, oh, what if, because in Tamil like tradition, it's very common to have a sacrificial goat, right? Once a year, some temples will have a sacrificial goat. So, and I was just thinking about it, and I was like, okay, what if, because if the goat has to be male, and so what if the goat is pregnant? What would happen to the community? Because it's something that it doesn't even occur to the people, right? Like and sort of it sort of also sort of juxtaposes like the whole idea that the kids as well, they could be, they could, maybe they look like a guy and they could feel, anything. And so all this culminated into that goat. I felt like, I feel like because we are such a sort of iconographic culture, right? So the goat, for some reason, the goat works as the kids, the goat works as the community, the goat works as a parent. It could be anything, because we are all sort of in a way sacrificial, right? So yeah, I guess that sort of started it. Yeah.
So the decision to shoot Bleat black and white. What was the reason?
So me and my GP Adrian, we were talking a lot about the kind of, because I like to keep it all quite stable, and we were talking about it has to be like a fable, right? The story is it's a tale of this community, and I was telling him that I want the story to, because it should work in about 20 years or 30 years, right? And I felt like black and white has this power that it takes away all this extra stuff and make people focus on the story itself, right? Like you're not tricking them with colors, you're not tricking them with like that sort of, because there's a lot of like chemistry, or I think it's chemistry, I don't know. Like they have a lot of this thing about, like if a character is wearing red color, and then like people subconsciously know that the character is, up to no good or something. And we all have heard that, right, in film school and all that. And I wanted to like, okay, what if I take out all that, right? So it's a one monochromatic image, and all we have is to lean on the story, right? And then if you watch, because, and also the story, it's like if you watch it, you don't know if it's happening now or it happened like 10 years ago. Like that, I never gave a timeline to it, and it sort of worked. So black and white was like a no-brainer. Like it's like the first conversation we had, and we sort of already knew that it just works. Yeah, and then it's like putting them in the time and space of the community as well, right? Like if you put them in this black and white space, I feel like you are stuck there, and you have no choice but to look at their people, look at their faces, and look at just yeah, the story, I guess. Yeah.
So Bleed received funding from the Singapore International Film Festival Short Film and Singapore Momo Distribution Grant.
Yeah.
So how did this support help you in making the film, and what challenges did you face during production? And how did the
Uh,
grant overcome them?
uh, so the whatever like Singapore Fund and Momo distribution grant gave us was like just amazing, right? Like, and this was early on too. Like this was like before we start shooting, like we applied it with just the script. So like when we applied for it and when I got back the reaction that, oh, we got the fund, I was like, okay, that means the story has some value to it. I just felt like this because I needed that sort of like because as an artist you always felt like you're questioning, is this the right story, am I saying all this? And then when you get like a grant, it really helps you, like, okay, the confidence just sort of grows in you, right? Which is really nice. So really thankful to both of them, and it's really competitive too, because we are like Southeast Asia right now is surrounded by so many great filmmakers across the region, and it's such like a vibrant and competitive and really really healthy atmosphere to make film in, and to and also be selected by these two bodies was like really great. We were super happy. I remember like this was way before Khan and all that, right? Like we were like, oh my god, we got selected. That's great. Um, and then in terms of challenges, it wasn't really like a like production challenge because like the producer and I, Bells and I, we've been working together for almost 10 years now. And me and the DP have been working together for almost the same time, like a decade. Like the team that the AD and I know each other really well. And like the team is this core team that I've always worked with. So they knew what I'm thinking and like I know how the workflow will be and all that. So that was kind of good. But the one that really I was struggling with was what like balancing the because the film is sort of like a black comedy sort of drama, right? If you so it like I don't want to make it a joke, but I also don't want it to be serious. So that was like I was really struggling with that a little bit in terms of internally, in terms of when I'm directing people and all that, because it's because it's very easy for cultures, right, to be stereotyped and sort of shown in a very funny way, right? Like if we have seen in ads all across the world, like how they show Indian people in America or how they show the Chinese people in the UK. Like it's just ridiculous, right? Because it's so easy to just drop them into the stereotype and then like make people laugh. But then when you go back home, you know that Indian people are not like that, right? Or Chinese people, whatever race they are, they're not like that because they also have different problems and they also have like human side to them. So I didn't want the characters to come off as caricature or something like that, And because it's a fine balance, which I was kind of like quite struggling with it internally. Uh, but then I guess because I had a good team around me, like my DP, and we had conversation, like a lot of conversations about how to what to do with the actors and like and so it just sort of worked, and editing as well, right? So you like I didn't yeah, I guess all this it's more about that internal fear that, okay, am I doing right by my community? um but also because I before this I've never made a Tamil film, because I've only made shorts, but like the previous shorts were like a mixture, right? Like Tamil and English, Tamil and Malay, English and Malay. Like it wasn't like a pure Tamil Malaysian film, right? Because I was internally as well, I was kind of worried that, am I doing justice to my people? Because I've seen a lot of other filmmakers who've done films, Tamil filmmakers in Malaysia make Tamil films, and they didn't really do justice. Like while there's a lot of them who did justice, but there's some. So I was worried that I will fall into this category, right? And so I was very cautious about that. Like I wanted to show this sort of three-dimensional characters. So yeah.
So like all the actors were non-actors or they were actors?
Right. So the goat is definitely a non-actor because but the two main leads, they were doing commercial films in Malaysia, right? Like TV series and some movies, doing side roles and secondary characters. But I found that they had really fresh faces, so that's the main reason we sort of selected them. But there's also the shots of like these crowd, right? Like people just in the temple and all that. Those were people from my hometown, like where my mom was born. My family was like sort of my grandparents or my great grandparents came during the immigration period, right, back in the days. That's my hometown, right? So then we shot the temple in that hometown, and the people were from the hometown. So it's like I just used real people to be in the film, and it was like a planned idea too. Like I didn't want to, because they have these, I don't know, features, and they have these characters that's always very unique. I feel, which actors could never pull it off, and they have to watch a goat go through all this, and so you could get real reactions of people who might disagree with what's happening on screen, right? And to be able to put them in on the set and sort of explaining to them like, okay, I'm doing this because this. And it's just, I don't know, it's just something therapeutic about it or something. Yeah.
So, what was your reaction upon learning the Bleat was selected for Cannes?
Oh, that was mad. That was definitely mad. It's like unbelievable experience. I'm sure all the filmmakers who first got selected to Cannes feel the same way, because it's something that you you sort of dream about, and you talk and you joke about it. But we were very lucky, and because we were surrounded by really good films too, and I was super happy. I remember it was like really like, because it was like in France, it's like, it's like daytime, and Malaysia it's like 3 o'clock at night, sleeping. And it was just randomly I woke up because my producer was calling like, "Oh my god, we got in!" I was like, "What do you mean? Like we got in?" I was like still half asleep, like, "We got in? This is real?" Because I was reading messages, and like, the phone was ringing, and it was a very surreal experience. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it now. It's just, yeah, it's great. 'Cause we couldn't believe it. Yeah.
And what was your experience in?
In Cannes? Oh, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, because we were in Semaine de la Critique, and and I mean the programmers, the team behind, they were so wonderful, and they have seen the film, and they were so complimentary of it, and they liked it, and even the screenings, right? People really reacted, because like I couldn't even like it's so weird, because like the French, I guess most of them are French there, right? They wouldn't even know the sounds of pare and like goats being, like the ceremonial in Tamil things about goats and all that, right? So for them to see it in a big screen, it must be like a visceral experience, right? And I was sitting there looking at them reacting to like, what here, huh? So it's really fantastic, right? And also the collection of films that they put us together with, like the 5 shorts they put us together with, there was like, it was really complimentary of each other, because they all were about identities, they all were about problems in their communities, and how these filmmakers were trying to create that. So yeah, man, it was a fantastic experience. Like, it's impossible to explain with words, right? Because it's like it's a very rare experience. So yeah.
So, what does receiving the Quail Palm for Best Short Film signify for you and for Malaysian cinema?
Um. Wow. Like Malaysian cinema, right? It's like we are in a great time in Malaysian cinema, right? Because there's this, like, previous couple of years ago, Amanda was in Malaysia with sorry, in Cannes with Tiger Stripes, and she won Best Film in Critics Week too. And then we have like Daryl making Oasis. So now there's just a lot of filmmakers up and coming, and like Mickey won Best Shot in Locarno last year, and so Malaysian cinema right now is really thriving. Like there's like this, you can feel it everywhere. Like people are like trying to make movies. A lot of young filmmakers are just popping out of nowhere, and we feel like this like this renewed like love for, okay, Malaysian cinema has to be out there, right? And because Malaysia is such a mixed cultured community, we have so much stories, right? We have stories from the Malay community, from the Indian community, from the Chinese community, and then like the Indian and Chinese community, and the Malay and the Indian community. It's just like a mixture, and we have lived this life for almost like 7 years now, and there's just abundant of stories, and these filmmakers are coming in saying like, oh, like we wanna tell this one, and so it's just great. And winning Quail Palm it's for at least personally, it's like a thumbs up for me, saying that, okay, you're on the right way, because I want to explore identity, uh, not just sexually, but also like mentally and traditionally and culturally, because the whole idea of Queer Palm is finding identity, right? Like being proud of your identity, and them celebrating Bleed was just wow. It's something that I'll never forget too. Like it was like we already got the cake, and then they put another cake on top of it, right? And yeah, it was great, and I knew that I was going in the right track as a filmmaker, right? Like, because I wanted, like I was telling earlier, right, how I wanted to talk about my community in a certain way, in a very real way, in a positive way too, right? Like for them, like to bring the community forward too, as a whole. So yeah, it just shows that okay, I'm on the right track, and people are responding to the Malaysian Tamil experience. Yeah.
So you are currently developing your debut feature film, The Passport. Can you
Yep.
tell us more about the project?
Oh yeah. So Passport, which is the working title actually, not the real title anyway. But Passport is about a Malaysian Tamil punk rock musician in Malaysia who struggles to find the balance between identity and tradition, right? So it's about this girl who's like super into punk rock, but then when she hits 20, the parents are like, "It's time for you to get a job and get married." So it's about that experience and how that, like again, like fighting against the norm, fighting against the culture, rebelling. Um, yeah, so that's the entire film, but it really brings us into the deep punk scenes of Malaysia, the Malaysian, because it's a very niche community, but it's really sort of really bright and powerful, while also bringing us into the deep part of the Malaysian Tamil experience, right? Because with Bleed, I could only do 15 minutes, but with a feature, I could do it for 2 hours, right? Like there's so much more I could say, and so this character is going to bring us through all this out. So we're going to learn about Malaysian Tamil people via punk.
So, like, can you recommend like your favorite films and filmmakers in general?
Oh, sorry. Sure. So my favorite filmmaker will be G. Aravindan. He's the Malayalam filmmaker. So he made uh, uh, Kumati, and Circus. So I would, I mean, if I have to recommend, I'll say watch G. Aravindan stuff. It's so amazing, right? And why we didn't know him for so long is just beyond me. But thank God for Scorsese for like bringing it out with the World Cinema Project. Uh, and like, yeah, so I really like him. Kelly Reichardt is another favorite of mine. Latias is a favorite of mine. But yeah, like I would, if there's a film that I want people to watch, it would be Kumanji or Circus by J. Aravindan. I think it's really, it speaks to, because there's this, even now with all the, whatever Pyle did last year, and with everything that we have in Indian cinema across the diaspora, right? Like Little Jaffna is out in France, French Tamil movie, right? In Sri Lanka, they make Tamil, in Malaysia. So, and in Singapore as well, Yellowbird. So the diaspora of Tamil cinema is quite big, or just Indian cinema in general, it's quite big, and with Pyle doing whatever, but there's still this sort of taboo sometimes that, oh, this is what Indian cinema is in the, not in the festival circuit, right? But like in the public eye, right? So I'm assuming the public watch this. I want them to watch Kumati to show that how advanced we were in cinema. Like we were, like they, like, ah, man, so good. Like if Scorsese watches something and says like this is great cinema, like you're supposed to be paying attention to it. So yeah, G. Aravindan all the way, man. Yeah.
Great, great. So, last question is like, if somebody wants to become a filmmaker, like, what advice would you give them?
Well, this is a weird question because I don't really have an answer, because I think see, talent aside, I guess, like, because talent comes with practice, right? Like it's consistency. I guess the answer is consistency. So be consistent. We are all not wonderkins, right? Like we all want to be wonderkins, like our first film to, I don't know, win Sundance or something. But the odds are we are not. But that's not the point of cinema, right? The point of cinema is exploring your people, like exploring your stories that's dear to you. So explore and explore and explore, because you don't need permission to make film. That's the greatest thing about art. You don't need permission. You just make. But you don't make for festivals, right? And I know sometimes people might think it's easy for me to say now, please you can't. But I've made films that did not go anywhere, right? We just saw the local festivals and stuff. So the idea is to be consistent, to keep making cinema, and do cinema together with others, because we'll never get far alone. It's all about a community. Like even though my films talk about community, I'm building my own community in the cinema world, right? So it's a process, and trust the process and be consistent and read, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, read. Yes.